Greetings, Sentinels fans. There are lots of synergies and strategies in this game that people love to take advantage of, but there are some that tend to trivialize the game for me. I suppose I could rename this 10 ways to trivialize the game, but I think presenting it as a banned list would get more attention. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Before I begin, let me be clear. It is okay to use these strategies when you want. If you're having trouble winning, feel like defeating a villain with ease, want a power trip, or just want to do it every now and then, you can go ahead. However, these strategies have a tendency to ruin my fun, so I avoid them unless I'm in the mood. I also will not play with people who insist on using these strategies all the time. Simply put, I don't feel like being bored. Starting at number 10, we have Benchmark. I placed the use of this hero at the bottom of the list because he does have his own weaknesses, and accomplishing his ridiculous abilities is pretty fun. My issue with him is that once you know what you are doing, it's very easy to get into top form. His card draw is great, he has excellent summons, and his card play can be ridiculous as well. Really, it's a ramp-up effect. He needs time to get going, but once he does, he becomes an excellent tank, a good support, and an obnoxiously powerful attacker. So yeah, a slightly overpowered character on his own. Number 9. Action Hero Stuntman. This one's a bit of a combination complaint. He is super strong, but plays in ways that I do not enjoy. His base power is to play a card and increase his own power by 1. Couple that with the fact that Stuntman's deck is designed for powers to be used outside his turn. So this means that you play 2 cards on his turn, activate one of them on a later turn, replace it with another card, and then just stack up power uses. Combine this with his area attacks, and he can clear the field fairly easily. That's the overpowered angle. The annoying angle is one of the similar problems that base Expatriate has. He plays extra cards, but his deck doesn't have much in the way of extra card draw. This means that every time he uses power, his hand shrinks. I hate having a small hand. It feels like I don't have many options with me, and encourages me to either boost his card draw with other heroes, or double skip on a later turn. And I hate feeling like I have to double skip. Now, the shrinking hand is a me problem, but the overpowered nature of his deck is enough to put him on this list. Number 8. Malpractice Medico and the Second Opinion combo. This is a twofer, mostly because they are both very specific strategies. I find Malpractice Medico to be a bit of a strange choice, because Medico is the only character in the game that is designed to be a healer. Other characters are capable of healing and are even good at it, but Medico is the only classic healer type character. So turning him into an offensive attacker feels weird to me. His power turns the first instance of healing per hero per turn into damage against an enemy. His power also redirects other heroes' healing into damage, so this ability can really ramp up by bringing in more healers. What's more, if you actually need the healing, all you need to do is ignore his base power. Maybe use a different power, or just double skip, and boom, your hurting has become healing again. In this way, it almost feels like the original variant is completely unnecessary, and I strongly dislike when a variant feels objectively better, rather than subjectively better. The other Medico strategy I dislike is the other one that is built into his deck. Second Opinion, coupled with Experimental Medicine and Healing Pulse, allows you to give all your other heroes powers for the low price of 4 self-damage per round, reduced to 3 since you can heal with Healing Pulse's passive. While this effect is seen in other decks, it's usually on one-shots, or if it's a consistent effect, then it's only one hero at a time. Having every hero pour on powers round after round is kind of insane. It gets even more insane if you add regeneration into the mix, bringing loads of powers every turn for a full round as long as you're okay with paying the health cost. Number 7, and this is the first one that isn't tied to a specific character. Power Juggling. What I call power juggling is when you set up a bunch of heroes who are capable of feeding powers to others. You know the ones: Argent Adept, Prime Warden's Fanatic, Old Legacy, Akash 3, Benchmark, and Dr. Medico as previously stated. And with most of these, you usually end up with an extra benefit on top of that. You get a point of healing from Legacy, an extra card play from Fanatic, and whatever cocktail of benefits you are wringing out of Argent, while you get to continually use the power you consider to be best. Imagine continually spamming Motivational Charge for 2 damage and a point of healing for everyone every turn. Or spamming Writhed Stun Bolt for fun and profit. If 4 out of 5 heroes can pass around powers, then you can just keep using your favorite. It does get to a point where the players are going, whose turn is it anyway? Because so many effects are being slung around. Number 6. Cosmic Inventor Writhed. Each of the Void Guard, as individuals, are very powerful characters, but Cosmic Inventor Writhed brings it to a new level. His power allows him to choose a hero and prevent the first damage dealt to them per turn, which is essentially a replacement for the Shadow Cloak, but with the option to give it to another hero. This is powerful enough, considering if you are lucky you can also have the Shadow Cloak as well, providing protection for 2 heroes. What sets this to overpowered territory is the card draw. When you use the power, you also draw 2 cards. That is staggeringly huge to have on top of another effect. For reference, the only other hero with that kind of consistent draw power without there being any kind of drawbacks is Lifeline. And he's just dealing in card draw, not another extraordinarily powerful effect. Yeah, Night Mist, Tachyon, and Visionary get that too, but Night Mist has to do self-harm, and the other 2 require a discard, bringing the net gain to 1. There is also to consider Writhed's deck ratio when it comes to his summons. You always want the Shadow Cloak when playing Writhed, and including the Shadow Cloak card, there are only 8 cards that get it to you. 5 if you are trying to search his deck. 5 out of 40 cards is not a lot. Without extra card draw, there is a decent chance you might never see the Shadow Cloak, which is a bummer because most of his deck involves blowing up the Shadow Cloak. However, with 2 extra card draws, that's enough card draw to almost guarantee you will find the Shadow Cloak or a usable summon card. And once you have the cloak, all you need to do is avoid using the Grasping Shadow Cloth until you have another summon card with you, and you get a ludicrous amount of tanking for you and a friend. And of course, with all the card draw, you will never run out of fodder for cloak protection. Also, food for thought, imagine using this power to prevent heroes self-harm, like for effects that force them to hurt themselves, but don't actually need the damage to happen in order to get the benefits. Now, time for number 5. This one is the Raw Visionary Flame Shield combo. Visionary has a wonderful card called Twist the Ether that you can stack on a hero to boost their power, or a villain to weaken theirs. She also changes the type of attack it is, changing it to Ice, Energy, Radiant, or, what's relevant in this case, Fire. Ra has Flesh of the Sun God, which passively makes Ra immune to fire, but he can use a power to make each hero immune to fire using it. That way, if you change all villain damage to fire, then your heroes become completely immune to that villain's attacks. And since it is so easy to do with heroes that are from the core game, not the expansions, the core game, that's why this is so high on this list. Number 4, Stunlock strategies. This is named for a technique in fighting games, where a player uses certain moves that stop their opponents from doing anything. In Sentinels, you see that in cards that prevent damage from happening, like Ground Pound or Hypersonic Assault. This also shows up in cards that prevent villain card plays, like Mistbound or Grasping Shadow Cloth. By themselves, I'm okay with them, since they're all single use. My issue is when you use Tempest or Argent or Commodora to get those cards back and accessible for your heroes. When you spend your turns getting these cards back, it starts to get more than a little tedious. This is one where I do remember a specific game where I played Legacy, someone else played Tachyon, and a third person played Tempest, and with Tempest Reclaimed from the Deep, that player would give us back the Hypersonic Assault, a takedown, and another Reclaimed from the Deep, and eventually I got so friggin' bored because I'm just sitting at my computer, essentially doing nothing and waiting for the game to finish. No more fun, just waiting for the calculators to finish doing the math. Number 3. The Tempest In-Cap Exploit. Here's one that's only done by a very specific type of player. Ones that, in order to get their easy win, will deliberately get base Tempest knocked out so they can take advantage of his overpowered in-cap ability, where you select the type of damage and make all heroes immune to that damage. Now you may ask, why is this higher than the Visionary and Raw combo? Or why I seem to be fine from Legacy's Lead from the Front and Next Evolution combo? This comes down to implied deliberateness. The Legacy combo feels completely deliberate as it was part of the deck, and is also limited to one damage type unless you manage to use the power more than once in a round. I do, however, still avoid that combo where I can. Legacy is good enough without it. The Visionary and Raw combo doesn't feel like it was deliberate, even if it was. And of course, it feels really wrong to deliberately knock out a hero for his in-cap. It feels antithetical to the entire point of the game. Number 2. Dark Visionary, Parse, and Wraith peeking at the deck. All 3 of these characters have the ability to look at the top card of the villain deck and rearrange them. Being able to mitigate the villain moves, or even simply prepare for them, gives the players such a huge advantage. Dark Visionary gets a leg up there for being able to do the look as an innate, so no ability to lose it, and she can look at both the villain and environment deck in a single turn, allowing total control. Parse also gets a leg up for being able to discard one of the cards she peeks at. You might actually get a good understanding of how overpowered this is when you note that there are 2 heroes that rearrange villain decks with impunity in the base game, and only one that does the same later on. Other heroes do get the ability to peek at cards, but frequently at a cost, or only as one-shots, or as a very small effect. And finally, we have number 1, And you might be able to guess what it is if you remember what my title card was. Freedom 6 Tachyon. Often called Team Leader Tachyon based off of her power name. This was probably the biggest balancing misstep made by the game creators. Essentially, the idea is that they take Tachyon's Fleet of Foot card and turn it into a power, where every hero draws a card. Thing is, that this effect was really powerful even when it was a one-shot. If you do the math, you spend 1 card to have all heroes draw 1. You replace your own card and increase the size of all your heroes' hands. It's a 2 to 4 card net gain. Replace this with the power, and it's a guaranteed game of 3 to 5 cards, increasing the hand size of all the players. First, this power discourages double skipping, as that would be objectively worse than using the power. Second, this drawing power is uncontested among all other abilities. The only powers that come even close to it have drawbacks or have circumstances that make them less useful. Third, because it can be done every turn, you will end up with all your heroes having huge hands to work with. Sentinels is not such a difficult game that you need to pull out all the stops in order to win. This isn't Pandemic or Aeon's End. Thus, I find this game is actually at its most interesting when you have limited options available to you. Powers like this that just hands you all the options devalue that experience. A huge element of risk is no longer present in the game. You don't need to worry about grabbing that 1 card you need because you essentially doubled your card draw just by including her. Need Wrathful Retribution? This changes the odds of drawing it from maybe to very likely. Need healing? Well, Tempest is very likely to grab his Cleansing Downpour now. Worried about X-Pac getting guns? Well, now she will have all the guns! With no more element of risk involved with getting cards you need, the game becomes predictable. Boring. And here's the thing, guys. You can use these techniques as much as you like. I'm not here to say that your fun is wrong. This is my list after all. If you disagree, then you can make your own list. Which I encourage you to do, by the way. We need more Sentinels YouTubers. And heck, I've used these strategies myself, most notably during my recent Oblivion win without using any mission or reward cards. I used the Tempest, Malpractice Medico, and benchmark strategies to accomplish that. I'm not saying you shouldn't use these ever. I'm just saying that I am much less likely to have fun if these strategies are being abused. But that is my personal ban list. If you want to make the game stupidly easy for yourself, go right ahead and use these. That being said, I hope to see you next week. Take care, friends. Let us begin. It's falling asleep. Need to sit differently. This also... Yes, this is very important. Yes. Oh boy, the heat stroke is getting to me. Hot days, I can't wait to turn the AC on. Man, oh man, I need it right now. But I can't turn on the AC because that would make noise, and that would really mess up my camera. Well, it really would mess up this recording.